Meetings Act, be advised that a notice of this meeting was made by posting on the bulletin board in Town Hall and forwarding to the officially designated newspapers that this meeting would take place at Town Hall at 7:30 p.m. on Tuesday, April 16th, 2019. Please stand to salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Ms. Burstein?
Here.
Mr. Levy?
Here.
Ms. Lieberberg?
Here.
Ms. Krukas? Mayor Phil Eichelin?
Here.
Thank you.
May I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we have 3 proclamations tonight. Ms. Burstein is scheduled to present a proclamation, and Mayor Becker would like to come up with Cheryl.
I'm Elaine Becker, Chairman of the Community Service Award Committee. I have one member here, Lynn Ranieri, say hello. Everyone else couldn't come, but Lynn's not here. The Community Service Award Committee is pleased to nominate for our award tonight Roger Manchell, and it will be accepted by his wife Lynn and daughter Lisa and her friend. And so I just wanted to say that Roger will be the 82nd awardee for community service. So it really speaks so well of our township and how many people volunteer to do so much in the town. And so without waiting, we'll bring you up to the front, and Mayor Cheryl is going to read the proclamation. Come on up.
Whereas the Millburn Township Committee values the contributions of volunteers in the township and wants to recognize outstanding volunteer efforts that reflect the giving spirit of our community. And whereas since moving to the township in 1961 with his family, Roger Manchell dedicated his time, energy, and knowledge serving Millburn during the years from 1997 to 2018 as a member and chairperson of the Zoning Board of Adjustment, a member of the Planning Board, and a member of the Millburn Short Hills Historic Preservation Commission. And whereas Roger Manchell served the Millburn community and the communities in the surrounding area, including serving as a board member of the Millburn Short Hills United Way from 1998 to 2004, the Boys and Girls Club of North, and the Newark Biracial Industrial Co-Coordinating Council. In addition, Roger Manchell served as a board member and chairperson of Family Connections from 2004 to 2018. He also served in various capacities at the American Jewish Committee, the Metro West Jewish Federation, and Congregation for Native Gesture. Now therefore, Diane Bell, Mayor of the Township of Millburn, on behalf of the Township Committee and members of the Millburn community, on the 16th day of April 2019, recognized Roger Manchell posthumously for his extensive contributions and record of service to the Millburn community and other nearby communities, and present this award to his family with our gratitude.
Would wave the Millburn item at me and rant about my father, even though he was unaware inside himself that he might have been a controversial figure. He just did what he thought was right, and we loved this, and he made this more of a home for all those decades. So thank everyone.
Thank you.
Take that off. Shows his name and today's date.
Thank you.
Lisa didn't explain that the reason Mrs. Manchell, Lynn, couldn't get up is that she injured her back and she's in a bit of pain. So this is her first outing, and we're glad that she was able to come.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. Appreciate your being able to come out tonight. And we have another proclamation by Ms. Lieberberg.
Whereas alcohol is the most commonly used and abused drug among youth in the United States, and excessive drinking is responsible for more than 4,700 deaths among underage youth each year, and whereas approximately 7,000 children in the U.S. under the age of 16 take their first drink every day, which is a major problem because those who begin drinking before age 15 are 4 times more likely to develop alcoholism than those who begin at age 21. Whereas drinking by persons under the age of 21 is illegal, yet people aged 12 to 20 drink 11% of all alcohol consumed in the United States, and whereas kids who drink are more likely to be victims of violent crime, to be involved in alcohol-related traffic crashes, and to have serious school-related problems, and whereas community-based efforts can be effective in reducing youth access to alcohol and to prevent and treat alcohol-related problems, and whereas a supportive family environment with good communication, positive reinforcement, and strong boundaries on alcohol use is associated with lower rates of alcohol use for adolescents, and whereas kids who have conversations with their parents and learn about the dangers of drugs and alcohol are 50% less likely to use alcohol and drugs than those who do not have such conversations. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Township Committee of the Township of Millburn, we do by hereby proclaim April 2019 as Alcohol Awareness Month in the Township, and in recognition, I call upon all citizens, parents, schools, and businesses in the Township to support the Millburn Municipal Alliance Committee's 10th Annual Family Meal Week by dining as a family more often. National research shows that children and teens who eat regularly with their families do better in school, have better relationships with family and friends, and are less likely to engage in risky behaviors such as underage drinking or drug use. Frequent family meals are an effective preventative tool in influencing a child's decision to not use alcohol and help support a safe and healthy community.
Thank you. And we have one more proclamation. This is the 40th year of Arbor Day. And whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees. And whereas trees reduce the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, cut heating and cooling costs, moderate the temperature, clean the air, produce oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife. And whereas trees are a renewable resource giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other wood products. And whereas trees in our city increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our community. And whereas trees, wherever they are planted, are a source of joy and spiritual renewal. And whereas the Township of Millburn has received as a Tree City USA for its 40th year in 2019 by the National Arbor Day Foundation, and desires to continue its tree planting practices. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the Township Committee of the Township of Millburn in the County of Essex, State of New Jersey, do hereby proclaim April 26, 2019 as Arbor Day, and urge all citizens to support efforts to protect our trees and woodlands and support our township's urban forestry program. I've been on the Shade Tree Committee now for, this will be my third year, working with Tom Doty, and we just got a resignation. So we do have an opening on Shade Tree. So anybody watching, or if you have an interest in trees in town and want to keep our town beautiful and talk about the native tree species, please go online to the volunteer interest form and we will see if you're a good fit. And we will present this to Tom Doty, our forester. Okay, moving on. Minutes. May I have a motion to approve the February 19th, 2019 Township Committee minutes?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Wait,
No.
this is the 19th? The special,
February 19th.
the regular?
Yes. No special.
No special, second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? May I have a motion to approve the February 19th, 2000, oh no, these are the special, 2019 special Township Committee meetings, minutes. Okay, so the first one was for the regular minutes.
So you fixed
I
that,
moved
you
the
corrected
special
the
one.
mistake.
You moved the
Okay.
special?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what you announced.
Right.
Okay.
And I seconded the special.
Okay, so now it's the regular.
There you go.
We flipped it. Can I have a motion to approve the regular Township Committee minutes?
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, reports. Okay, good evening. First, I want to wish everyone a happy Easter and Passover. Tomorrow at 2 p.m., the Rec Department will be hosting the grand opening event of the new Gero Park Playground. Please stop by. It's supposed to be a poster up there. There's going to be music and dancing, balloon animals, fun and games and ice pops, 2 p.m. at Gero Park. Okay, well, here is the old-fashioned way of sharing information. Okay. The current show at the Paper Mill Playhouse is Benny and June, and we thought it was
There we go.
There it is. Okay, it's not very big, but it's going to be online.
They're also
Oh, good. Okay, so Benny and June at that Paper Mill, great show. Thanks and compliments to the Millburn Chamber for organizing a very well-attended street fair this past weekend. I attended 2 events with local mayors and New Jersey elected officials. The first event was held at Newark City Hall, hosted by Governor Murphy. Governor Murphy discussed his budget for New Jersey, SALT, marijuana legislation, funding for education, and gun control. Interesting point, a gun permit is still $2. It's been like that for 50 years, and Governor Murphy thinks that that should be brought up to more modern fees. He's working on that. Millburn's Chamber of Commerce was one of the hosts at the event held at Mayfair Farms. Panel was led by Assemblyman Bramnick and New Jersey's Senate President Stephen Sweeney. A common topic at both these events was the need for federal funding for the Gateway Tunnel and the current training and hiring of more conductors for New Jersey Transit. It was said at both these meetings that the lack of conductors is a large contributor to our train delays, besides the condition of the tunnel. We at Town Hall realize without a DMDA there are gaps that need addressing. For instance, in the past, the weekends in June were sidewalk sale days. Downtown merchants will be offered this opportunity to put out racks and tables with their merchandise Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays for the month of June only. We will post this on the town website. We are also in the process of updating some of our zoning definitions, as well as our lighting and signage ordinances with our town planner and zoning officer. Alex is working on that. We hope that these measures would help to streamline the zoning applications moving forward. We are also providing training for a new town hall employee to facilitate interested parties looking to open businesses. This is all very preliminary, but we hope this person can serve as an economic development liaison, perhaps as a first point of contact at Town Hall for interested parties. Currently, there's an exhibition, there it is, at the Millburn Library. This is in conjunction with our Environmental Commission. Elizabeth Volavon is our chairperson, and ANJAC, which is the Association of All New Jersey Environmental Commissions. There's a lot of really interesting posters there about native plants. I don't think a day goes by that either the newspaper or the radio you don't hear about the environment and plastics. So this is a very pertinent exhibition, and there are rain gardens in town. In anticipation of a future presentation to the TC by the Environmental Commission, which will look to prohibit single-use disposable plastic bags, straws, and polystyrene takeout containers. The Environmental Commission, in conjunction with members of the Township's Green Team and the school's Environmental Committee, will be hosting 2 public information sessions in the library on April 30th, 9 a.m. and 7 p.m. This is a very important initiative by these joint groups, and they realize that public outreach, education, and support is paramount to its success. It's really important if you have an opinion either way on this plastics ban that you try to get to one of those meetings, April 30th, 9 a.m. and 7 p.m. And Congressman Malinowski will be hosting an Earth Day cleanup on April 30th or 20th, 12 to 2 p.m. at Campbell's Pond. They will be providing bags, and this will be at Campbell's Pond in the reservation. So it's also another really important environmental initiative by Congressman Malinowski, and I think we'll have a big turnout. Lastly, PACS met, and we have retained and instructed Stantec, our traffic engineer consultant, to review the corners at Millburn and Main. The plans will maintain a pedestrian refuge, just not as large as it is now, while seeking to bring back better circulation pattern around these 2 corners. They will also be working on a plan along Essex Street across from the DPW building. This will allow better access to Town Hall Plaza while creating many new parking spots. The next PACS meeting, Stantec will have drawings for us to review, and 2 really important points. Nothing is going to get done before the spring, and nothing will get done before public outreach. We're not making any decisions. This will all be before to the Township Committee, and you all have plenty of time to know when we'll be talking about this. So So that is my reports, and moving on, Committeewoman Burstein, any reports?
Yeah, the library board met last night. May 7th is museum night, with Vivian Gordon from the Met discussing portraiture. There is, May 6th, there will be at 2 p.m., a discussion on The Gentleman from Moscow with Laura Winters moderating. Book is by Amor Towles, and the book is on reserve at the library at the reference desk. And the book sale will take place June 15th and 16th, and the library will start collecting books between May 1 and June 2nd. And there's a survey on the library's homepage for the library's working on its strategic plan for 2019 to 21.
Thank you. Committeewoman Lieberberg?
So last Sunday, we hosted Mill Wheels Rolling into Millburn with great fanfare and much success. We had wonderful community participation. About 200 people attended. Personally want to thank our musical groups, our volunteers, the CETA committee for making it all happen. I would like to encourage everyone to mark their calendars for September 7th, when we will roll out our decorated wheels. I happen to have one of the paperwork here, and there's some more on the table out in the main reception room for submissions of organizations or merchants to submit their design by May 24th. And you can also look on the township website for all the information. We had the joint Board of Ed TC meeting on April 11th. We continue to discuss issues regarding traffic and safety, particularly at Wyoming and pickup, and as well as enforcement of the regulations around the middle school. The conversation continues, and we're looking at ways to potentially change behavior and look at the policies to increase pedestrian safety as well as easing congestion. And last but not least, it is official, our interns now have a place to park. You can download the form from the website beginning May 1st through September 1st. For $75, our interns, whether they be local interns or working in New York City, can park at Lot 16, which is by the DPW, Lot 19, which is Spring and Essex, or Lot 14, Upper Millburn Avenue, with this special sticker. So you'll fill out the form, you can download it from the website, bring in your check for $75. You just have to show a letter of employment from either your New York employer or wherever you're interning, and you will get this kind of hang sticker to allow you to park at one of those 3 locations.
Thank you. Committeeman Levy, any reports?
No report.
Christine?
No reports, thank you, Mayor.
Jimmy?
Not this time.
Okay. Mr. Falcon?
Yes, I have an update on the affordable housing matters. Judge Gardner convened a case management conference on Friday afternoon in which all counsel participated. The subjects of the case management conference were to discuss the status of the builder's remedy case mediation and the status of the township's declaratory judgment action. As to the first case, we reported on information sought by the special master from the developer, and counsel to the developer reported to the court that his client would be providing that information to Mr. Banish within the next couple of weeks. The judge set up a further case management conference for June 7 and extended the township's immunity from further builder's remedy lawsuits to June 3rd. As to the second case, Kevin Walsh, attorney for the Fair Share Housing Center, reported that he has not had an opportunity yet to review the township planner's housing analysis, but committed to coordinate that with Mr. Banish, the court-appointed special master, within the next few weeks.
Thank you. Alex, reports?
Yeah, just 2 quick reports. One is just a reminder for all of our businesses that utilize the sidewalk for cafe space, that those permits need to be in and licenses applied for to be approved by the township committee before tables and chairs are placed out. And we're hoping that everybody can come into compliance with that. The code enforcement officer did hand deliver all of those to every business that has utilized it in the past or would be suspected of using that that service. Just briefly, at the March 19th meeting, the committee approved an RFP for a feasibility study at the JFK site for potential relocation of the Public Works facility. That is ongoing. After the approval, the RFP was awarded, and we met with them with certain township officials. They're going through their due diligence currently with the DEP, and there's a lot of work involved in this study with regard to compaction analysis, wetlands delineation, and other environmental factors, riparian zones that may exist there. So it will take a little bit of time. We're expected to get some preliminary information in the next week or so, but for a full report will probably take more like to the mid-May, end of May timeframe as a result of the extensive work that is being done with that RFP.
Can you just explain what a riparian zone is?
That's the area in a certain distance to a stream or body of water.
And there's a lot of that up there.
Well, Canoe Brook, the actual Canoe Brook, which is a lot of things are named after, is up there.
Okay, so we'll wait for that report. Our county rep is not here tonight, but he did tell us we were first on the list for paving, and I see there was some work started
Yeah.
on Buzzell Hill Road.
Yes, I'll give a brief update there
Okay.
as well. That some concrete work has begun on Old Short Hills Road and Parsonage Hill Road. Paving is imminent. Certainly, we will be communicating that as soon as we know to our residents specific dates. The contractor will be Smith Sondy, who have done roads in the past in the township. And again, I know that everybody is eagerly awaiting that work, and I can tell you that it is imminent. Once they finish their concrete work, they'll be out there for a mill and pave, and we are the first out of the gate.
And no one's going to complain if it's a little bit of a hassle when the street's closed. It's going to be a wonderful outcome. Okay, no complaining. Public comment. When invited to speak, please come to the lectern, clearly state your name and address, and speak into the podium microphone so that your comments can be understood by all and properly recorded. Whenever an audience or committee member reads from a prepared statement, please give or email a copy to the township clerk at cgatty@millburntwp.org. To help facilitate an orderly meeting and to permit all to be heard, speakers are asked to limit their comments to 3 minutes. And we have the counter that counts up. We do not buzz, but we ask you to please keep your eye on the time. When it's pushing 3 minutes, try to be wrapping it up. So let's open this up to the public. Anybody have a comment? Please step up to the podium. Mayor Becker.
Elaine Becker, Brookhaven Way. This is more of an announcement than no question involved. When everybody goes to see the Environmental Commission display in the library, please look to the right to the standing glass case, display case there, because we're celebrating the 40th anniversary of the Lackawanna Coalition, which was started in the late 70s, specifically April 2nd, 1979. So that was about re-electrifying the M&E. So all those electrical things you see behind the parking deck, that's what that was all about. So we have a lot of memorabilia there and some interesting things to read about the railroad. So I just wanted to mention it and hope that some people go and see our display.
Thank you.
Thank you.
How long will the exhibit be up?
It'll be up till the end, till the Friday at the end of the week, the last week of April.
Oh, so not too long.
Right. And that's, I
Right.
think, when the environmental display also goes down. Thank you.
Hard act to follow, Elaine. Josh Sharf, 11 Hawthorne Road. This is more of a question than anything else. After the scandal with the college admission problem came to light, we started working on an ordinance called ineligible student. which has been adopted by at least a dozen districts,
I'm
town.
just going to say we, meaning you, not the township committee.
Well,
Okay,
with
just
a
to
couple
clarify.
involvement there. So it seems to have worked away. About a week and a half ago, I was informed that Mila J.C. and Township Council didn't seem to agree with it. A little bit review, and it appears that Mila J.C.'s town of South Orange, Maplewood, has adopted the same ordinance and of ineligible students. It is a deterrent. It has kept their schools from being crowded with kids who are not eligible. And also, I was informed that Township Council has an issue with this ordinance. Do you have an issue with this ordinance?
I've never read it, I've never expressed an opinion about
Okay.
it, so the information you have is incorrect.
Okay, it's incorrect then. I would suggest that the Township Committee consider this ordinance, which has been adopted by a lot of our neighboring communities, including West Orange and Maplewood, South Orange, to protect the community from ineligible students. It's just a common sense thing, and it will become a deterrent for those who want to come here and take advantage of the community. I will provide, as many of you who want, an emailed copy of that ordinance. Again, it's been adopted by well over a dozen towns within the state of New Jersey. It's completely legal, and it acts as a deterrent, and you're able to claw back all tuition. While the state might provide for a district to claw back 1 year, if somebody's here for 5 years, 10 years as an eligible student, the town would be able to claw that money back, plus fines, plus penalties. And there are quite a number of them here. So I would encourage the TC to consider this ordinance. And again, I could provide copies to all of you. Can I email to each of you?
Would you like to receive a copy of that?
We'll certainly could look at it.
Terrific. And Jackie, would you like a copy of that? Diane, and of course Sam wants one.
Who claws back the money?
What?
Who claws back the money?
The town does. The town,
The township or the Board of Ed?
the township, and it's provided to the Board of Ed.
So
It's provided.
the
So there has to be a
township-
sharing statute on that, because the Board of Ed, which doesn't exist, and the Board of Ed already has policies to claw that back, as you know.
It's only for 1 year.
Yeah.
And this is for 10 years, for how many years that they want, how many years that they were here. So that provides a great deterrent in that. And I'm past my 3 minutes, Sam. You screwed me up over here. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Phil Kirsch, 93 Cedar Street. I actually have a letter for the county representative, but it is relevant to the township because Millburn Township is one of the 3 towns that makes up the South Mountain Reservation. So I'd like to read it, and I can send you a copy after the meeting. It's actually addressed to the Essex County Executive DiVincenzo, Mr. DiVincenzo. I was one of nearly a dozen residents who went before the Essex County Board of Freeholders on Wednesday, April 10th, to speak against funding for a new bear exhibit at the Turtleback Zoo. To me, the expenditure is not the main issue, though I would rather see open space funds, especially at this point in our continued overdevelopment, used exclusively to preserve land in its natural state, or to improve potentially unsafe areas like the structures over and around Campbell's Pond. And I will leave the pros and cons of keeping animals in any type of zoo to others. I love the zoo and its iconic train, and so does my grandson, as did my children before him. However, I have become very concerned that too much of a good thing is very soon going to compromise recreation in the whole of our beautiful and precious South Mountain Reservation, roil its traffic, and irretrievably spoil its natural qualities and availability to all county residents. It never was meant to be and should not become a stampeded Bronx Zoo or destination venue, and there will be no turning back as it approaches that scale. Turtleback has become justifiably popular, as evidenced by the need for yet another parking garage, which, even on existing zoo land, means more impermeable surface, more auto emissions on the reservation, and even more traffic and more crowds. It's wonderful that so many like the zoo and that we who live locally can share it with them. But if we continue to build more attractions and more parking garages and even more roads, take up more space and take down more trees, either inside or out of the zoo proper, we are changing the nature of both the zoo and the preserve it inhabits in a way that is not recoverable. If there is any lesson in where we find ourselves in a time of climate change and extreme weather brought on by our own achievements and abilities, it is that these become indulgences when we don't realize when to stop. And this is definitely one of those instances. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You'll give a copy to Christine?
Yes.
Okay, appreciate that. Anybody else for public comment?
You probably won't notice a difference, but I apologize that I was out on my daily death march and just stopped right here on the way home. So I look a little scruffy, that's why. I don't speak the language of municipal budgets very well, but and I was not here when this. I forgot to bring the agenda with me when this ordinance was read for first reading. But could you please explain to me the intent of the ordinance to exceed the municipal budget appropriation limits?
Sure. Want me to do it? Well, I'm presenting it.
Go ahead.
Sure.
I'll fill in.
You'll fill it in. New Jersey statute under 40A allows two types of revenue sources: a revenue cap, 2% on property taxes, which is well known, an expenditure cap. The expenditure cap's second that allows municipalities to exceed the 2.5% to go to 3.5% above COLA, cost of living adjustments. But the municipality has to pass an ordinance in which to do that. It doesn't mean that the municipality does do it. It just gives the municipality the authority to do it. Some call it a rainy day fund, some call it an insurance fund. It allows, in the event that extra expenditure funds are needed to be raised to exceed the 2.5%, to go to the 3.5%, sort of as an insurance policy. Absent the approval of the ordinance, the township committee, the administrators don't have the authority to do it if certain events took place that caused to do it. One such event, for instance, I think a few years ago, where we had to buy more salt than was anticipated for plowing, and because we had more snowstorms than anticipated, if there are other weather events and things like that.
Do I understand that you will implement this higher cap, and then any
No.
extra taxes collected will be put somewhere for
They don't
use?
get parked.
Oh, okay.
No, yeah, and it's not, just keep in mind that this is, so for instance, a few years ago, the cost of living adjustment or the appropriations cap was 0. So with a 0 cap, the municipality had to rely on banking, which is what this allows us to do, to be able to go above that 0%, and make necessary management decisions in the budget without having to make arbitrary cuts to services or things like that.
Okay, so there's no particular project in mind when this was instituted?
No, in fact, as I understand it, the budget appropriation is actually below the 2.5% presently.
Correct.
This just gives us the authority to do it in case it is needed.
Very good, thank you for the explanation.
So I don't have to do it again when it comes up to me again, right? Okay.
Maybe.
Anybody else? Okay, so we do have one person to speak, John Lloyd, who is our tax attorney. He has a small presentation, or long. For your,
It'll be very small. For just you or the crowd. Good evening. John Lloyd, Special Tax Counsel for Great Township of Millburn. Was asked tonight just to give sort of a state of the state, if you will, on the tax assessment base, and connected to that the current roster of property tax appeals as they exist. I always begin with an accurate statement and compliment of how fiscally sound this municipality is. Having done this for 30 years, I've had the advantage of knowing many other municipalities throughout the state and what their base condition is. And the base condition of Millburn continues to be extremely strong. A very diverse and strong rateable base, which is essential for the fiscal stability of any municipality. Currently, Millburn's tax rate of 1.9, and then if you apply the equalization ratio of 92% to that, it's really an effective tax rate of 1.8. These days, anything south of 2 is extremely attractive. That rate is laid against some strong assessments in town, and many people feel the rate is almost irrelevant when they look at their total tax bill, but the reality of it is in Millburn, that's more a function of the strength of the real estate assessment that the tax rate is being applied to. An effective tax rate of 1.8 is extremely strong. The base is also further reflected by the amount of appeals that are filed. We just finished the April 1st filing deadline, and the inventory of appeals this year has seen a bit of an increase, but it required a little bit more detailed analysis to try to understand why. Not uncommon that even with a 1.8 effective tax rate, the tax bill in Millburn and in many municipalities is exceedingly strong. And so anybody with some concern is going to look at their tax assessment and consider whether an appeal is indicated and a possible reduction could occur. I believe in breaking out the appeals, and just let me give you the numbers first. We're sitting with currently approximately 600 residential appeals, Class 2 appeals, and approximately 46 commercial appeals, and that would be both at the County Board of Taxation and the Tax Court. This, just for perspective, the 600 residential appeals represents only 9% of the residential tax base, number of line items. That is a higher percentage than has historically occurred, and I think I'll give a couple reasons why I think that might be the case. The 46 commercial appeals, about 7.5% of the commercial line items, and significantly there, under appeal are none of what we call the big ones, especially the mall, which is not under appeal and is currently sitting with an assessment that reflects a value of over $1 billion, and therefore it's 11.5%, 12% of your total rate base. Not many towns have a single property that is that amount of a tax base, so good news there. The Hilton is not under appeal. That was resolved several years ago, and that assessment continues to exist. So the 46 commercial appeals are sort of a combination of anything else that's not residential. It can be some of the office buildings and some of the retail outlets along Essex and Millburn. And, the cast of characters that are there, I would say, are fairly typical. I mean, they tend to cycle around. For all the years that I've been in Millburn, there's always been, it just seems, certain storefronts and certain pockets that will hit a vacancy and occur for a while. I've seen that trend through all different kinds of economic cycles, so it's hard to get an exact handle on it. The asking rents and the market rents of those property types are still quite strong, so it isn't as if the market has reacted to the slowness of the turnover by drastically reducing asking rents, which I take as a sign that there might be something else going on. They're always a different kind of a play. I think in the retail sector right now, everybody understands and reads that the retail industry is under a bit of a sea change right now. Again, to the good fortune of Millburn, the Short Hills Mall is really a different creature. A lot of what you read about that's going on with malls, which is extremely troubling to a lot of mall properties, quite frankly, Short Hills is immune from it in a lot of ways. It's just in a different classification. Many malls are being repurposed, tremendously turned over, and that's not the case with the mall. But the retail world beyond the mall, is still very much in flux, and I think that has affected some of the other commercial appeals that do exist right now. The office market has recovered a bit. Again, none of the really big ticket office buildings are you vulnerable on. These are more the smaller office buildings that again tend to have certain market realities to them. Within the residential section, and of the residential section, one of the things we track is where the appeals are coming from, what neighborhoods they're from, and concomitantly what the sales activity looks like there. And we have an equalization ratio of 92% right now, which is basically the average assessment to true value as measured by the sales study. A 92 ratio is a good ratio. It's not 100%, but anything in the 90s is considered positive. And in many of the neighborhoods, there's really, save 2 or 3 particular areas where we're seeing the sales softer than where the assessments were set during the reassessment. Short Hills Historic area, the old Short Hills area, a little bit into Hartshorn, are showing sales activities fairly consistently coming in where the sales are coming in below the assessments. But South Mountain, Wyoming, Glenwood, many of the areas, the Poet section is extremely strong. Those sales are consistently coming in with ratios in the low 90s or below, which means, just not to get too in the weeds with the numbers, which means that the sales are coming in above the assessments. So the number of appeals, my take on it at this point is a combination of perception that I don't think has been borne out in the market yet. The perception is that the SALT legislation was, everybody thought was going to have a tremendous effect on the residential market. I don't think that has happened. I think the Tax Reform Act was broader and more nuanced than one single component of it. And while obviously the SALT component of it has an effect of limiting a deduction, there were other elements of the tax reform that led to other economic consequences that militated against a severe drop in real estate values. Quite frankly, for as long as your school system is as strong as it is and you're on a train line, this town's real estate market is going to be strong. And you're very high on both of those counts. Both the strength of the school, not just that it's a strong school, but an extremely strong school, and the train system is effective. So I think the number was either 2 things. There clearly were a number of sales where appeals where there's a sale afoot, where a sale occurs, and for whatever reason, it could have been. Remember, mass appraisal is not an exact science. So when the reval went on in 2017, whether they got into the house or didn't get into the house, there's any number of reasons why an assessment that went on could have been a tad off. And until you've got a market sale to really test it, you don't know. So a number of, I would say 25 to 30% of the appeals have that kind of sale activity. So even with the adjustment occurring, it's not going to be a huge adjustment. I think there's a significant number of other appeals that, quite frankly, the township will have to kind of stand its ground because the proofs just aren't necessarily there that they're overassessed. In this age of social media, of excessively easy and fluent communication / advertisements, and as attorneys are restricted by ethics rules about how we solicit business, they're out there. And I think some of the solicitation activities in the last 2 years, not just here, we've seen this across the state, have ramped up. It's very easy for law firms to download public spreadsheets and information, mail merge them, and target mail. And I think that was at play as well with some of the spike of some of the appeals that occurred there. So in sum, a higher number than the last 2 to 3 years. A good part of that higher number, though, are defensible and will require our treatment, as we always do with residential taxpayers, is obviously it's not adversarial in a typical fashion, but it has to be sometimes, the real world has to be brought to bear, and the proofs have to be shown where it's indicated, where either by dint of an inaccurate sense of what the house was is shown by a sale, and if a sale indicates that an appeal is warranted and it's there, we don't stand on ceremony. We treat it straightforward, deal with it at the county board, get it resolved, and get the numbers correct. And so, that being said, is my report.
Thank you.
Open for questions, reactions, response, whatever you choose.
Anyone from the board have a question?
What prior to this year, what were generally our average appeals?
We had been kind of consistently hanging 4 to 5.5% of the rate base. So you take that number down into the, the high 3, half. So this was a bit of a spike, but what we call pro se would be the people who filed without an attorney tended to be those connected to sales. There's another thing that has happened with technology. All of this for the court system now is set up through e-courts. Mm-hmm. So the state superior courts and the tax court is a component of that, is connected to e-courts. So I'd be working in my office and I get the emails instantaneously. And there would just be stretches of time where there obviously were a couple of shops at work and loading, and I'd be literally sitting at my desk doing something else and seeing the emails coming in for Millburn appeals. So there's something there. I can't put a precise number to it, but I think there's some. So what I will say is, when initially we were concerned, we pushed local brokers along with our sources of information to kind of come up with some more recent market trends. And the last 12 months, it's critical of, so you're talking October 1 of 17 to end of September of 18. Mm-hmm. That's the window for the 19 tax year. That window especially, sales tended to come back closer to our ratio. So I think there was even some softness a little bit before that may have been still feeding into the system. But that's what we're seeing so far.
So I wasn't sure, like a storefront, if a storefront's been empty for many years, do they apply for a tax appeal?
Yes, yeah, they will. I look at the list of the names of the property owners, and I've seen them before. Mm-hmm. They're there with it. You really, we're careful on that. We say we have to reflect the fact it's vacant. We're probing. Well, why is it vacant? What is going on with it? Are you not dropping your rents? Even with that, there are sometimes just particular blocks, particular sections. I can't say definitively that some of it is the uncertainty of how things settle down with the reworking of the road works and the curbing that you've all gone through with tremendous notoriety. That has some effect at times, but I've seen it for too many years to really say that it's attributable to any one particular thing. I mean, it's just it's a tough part of the retail market. To find that right. If for somebody who just said that's a great location, I'll take it and I'll pay what they're asking, or they try to negotiate, and if the landlord doesn't budge, which is counterintuitive. Why would a landlord let a place stay vacant in return for just taking a little bit less rent?
We're asked that all the time.
Sometimes you just don't know.
Right.
You really don't know. But they're not treated materially different. Mm-hmm. In the income analysis, we may give a slightly higher vacancy rate. But the system is geared towards what's called the stability of assessments, which calls for specifically not to be individually reflective of the actual vacancy, to the chagrin of some taxpayers, but that's the law.
Okay. Please.
You saw a spike in tax appeals. Have you seen a spike in tax appeal successes?
Successes?
Yeah.
Well,
however you define that.
We'll see. I mean, these numbers
Go back to 17 and 18.
Oh, no. I think I would say in the aggregate, the resolution of the volume of appeals that occurred. I mean, I can tell you that pro ses tend to be dealt with more individually, but it's not uncommon for certain law firms to have multiple appeals. And the process we set up is they come out to my office. Lisa's there, the assessor's there, our experts there if we need them. They come in, they have their expert, their appraisals, and we try to work through a resolution, and 98.5% of them settle. The success.
Well, these law firms take them on a contingency fee,
yes.
Right? Okay, so they have an incentive to do that, because if you're announcing now that you settle 90% of them, then why not do it?
Well, yes, but the
it's a
flip.
dangerous announcement, I think.
But the flip of it is actually sometimes a leverage point. They're in it for a contingent fee. They're going to get the same fee if they try the case and it takes them longer than if it settles. And they factor that in.
Well, they as a law firm. But,
right.
But if the pronoun they apply to the taxpayers, and they are incentivized to do that, because you're saying that 90% of them are settled with some kind of accommodation. Right?
With some kind.
So maybe if you tried all these cases and there was no success, you'd have fewer of them.
That's right. But if you try a case or two and the judge is sympathetic, as they frequently are to pro ses, and word gets out that, hey, try the case in Millburn and you're going to get a reduction, we're less likely to settle cases.
Well, don't lose the trial.
Well, we could talk a little bit about the tax court judges that sit right now and where it's a different world. But to your point, if it's not there and not indicated, and when I say, resolve, I mean, there's a range of resolutions. Some of it is truly a token reduction in the forward year with no refund in the current year. That's kind of our typical formula we try for. But in the instance if it's an unreasonable pro se or an unreasonable taxpayer attorney, the case is tried. And
that's fewer than 10% based on your data, though.
Yes.
Okay, so still, the incentive is there. We all get these envelopes. hire this contingency fee lawyer, why not? Doesn't
Right.
cost you anything, right?
Well, that's-
You're gonna settle 90% of them, so maybe I should take a flyer on some of those.
Well, resolved, you feel,
No, that was an overpayment.
Oh,
That wasn't an appeal.
okay.
But now I might be incentivized to do it, so.
well, what I meant and said earlier about, as a municipality, when you're dealing with taxpayers who are citizens and are voters, there's a level of decorum and approach that we have with them. But we don't, if a reduction is not indicated, and when I say resolved by way of settlement, I mean a resolution where no refund is given. I mean, that's a resolution. There are not an insignificant number of withdrawals. When these numbers came in, it was important to try to get a handle on what the sales actually showed and what they revealed. So when you have those winnowed off that don't have a case, you bring this number down to those that if they come in with a usable sale that was marked by the assessor as usable.
All right, so what's that number then?
What's what number?
You're saying your 90% number includes some accommodations or some resolutions where there's no accommodation made. What's the number where there is an accommodation made?
Where there's none?
No,
Where
where there is, so 80%, 85%, I don't know.
Where there's a reduction?
Yeah. I don't know what that data is, that's why I'm asking.
I would say of all the appeals that occur, it's not an insignificant number of those that are a reduction. The precise percentage I don't have, but I can get that to you.
Not insignificant number, right?
No, but the question is, what is the reduction? And is it warranted? And is it warranted?
I've exhausted this, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we're good.
What about, did anyone from the
Well, I didn't do the next thing.
Okay.
Oh, does anyone from the public have a question for Mr. Lloyd? Okay. Wait, you have to come up and state your name and address.
I'll move over.
Okay, thank you.
I only have one question.
Wait,
Richard,
name? Yeah.
Sorry, Richard Wasserman, 24 Inverness Court. Is there a backlog right now? Like, what is the time frame to adjudicate, like a normal case? Somebody makes the April 1st, deadline. Are they in line for a year before it's adjudicated?
No, the first element of the answer to that is where they start. In other words, so there's two places where it can start. The County Board of Taxation, which any taxpayer can start. If your assessment is below $1 million, you must start at the county board before you go to the tax court. But there's a fair number who can start in the tax court because their assessments are over $1 million. In that regard, in tax court, there is a backlog, and it does take some time to get it processed. If they file at the county, they're dealt with in the first instance in the first 3 or 4 months. First cut, attempt to resolve the case if it's warranted. If it's not, town says no reduction, and they put their case on, and whatever happens with the judgment, the case appeals to the tax court. So once in the tax court, because of the volume of appeals, not just residential,
Right.
and not just Millburn, it's not uncommon for the first case management notice out of the tax court administrator's office to indicate a first date 14 to 16 months out.
Oh, so it takes some time.
Right. Now, even though that's the case, it's possible through our system where we try to get a handle on a case if it's got merit. We don't want it to drag on too long. It piles up refunds, it piles up credits.
Right.
So we tend to monitor those, especially towards the end of the year. We may try to commission settlement conferences where we see if those cases can be
Great.
weeded out.
Great. Thanks so much.
Yeah.
Thank you. I think we have Lynn Ranieri. Come on up.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I forgot to introduce myself last.
It's okay.
Lynn Ranieri, 94 Oakview Terrace. I have a little tangential question. In my former position on the Historic Preservation Commission and now in the Historical Society, I have been in the middle of vehement arguments from realtors on one side who say it's tougher to sell homes in the historic district, and people interested in local history say absolutely not true. And I've asked for statistics. Your comment today is the closest I've gotten to an answer. You said that sales were softer and below assessment in the Short Hills Park District. Do you happen to have any about the Wyoming district? Is that true of the Wyoming Historic District?
Beyond the district delineation, what really is telling is the historic characteristic in and of itself, right, by itself, standing by itself, I can't say that I have market evidence of which way on the two possibilities. Where we're seeing softness is at a certain price point,
Okay.
right? And it's just like, you know, and again, where it begins is up for debate, but $850 to $900 to $1,300,000. In that window, there seems to be softness right now.
Okay.
Combination of a number of factors. You cross the $1 million threshold, you have the mansion tax. It's an extra tax, you know, on the sale of the property. You have uncertainty about interest rates, maybe a little more sensitive there about salt impact, but whatever, and inventory. Whatever it is, that segment seems to be a bit soft right now. Part of it, the historic characteristic is a play, but I think it's actually both of what you heard is accurate. For buyer A, it could be, oh gosh, it's a hassle if I want to do this, if I want to swap the windows out, I'm going to be put through hell. And there are others who say, wow, I can't find something like that anywhere else, I'll pay for it. So you really have potentially two really different buying pools.
Okay, but you're seeing this in the Wyoming district
Yes.
as well as the
Yes,
Short
and
Hills Park?
the Wyoming area was coming in 92, 93%, which means that it's a simply stronger, you know, the sales there are strong. In fact, I'm not showing any appeals filed in neighborhood 200, which is part of the Wyoming. But I can certainly get more specifically on that.
Okay. I am interested in trying to find a resolution to this perpetual argument that the districts are an impediment to sales.
I'm not sure there's a definitive answer. Yeah. Unfortunately, it could be a typical lawyer's answer.
Please.
From information I've seen, that sales were quite a bit lower this past year than in past years. I don't know if you have information on sales that you can remember, but it seems to me it was only about 270 this past year, where it's usually at least 300 over houses that are sold. And I keep hearing from realtors that there are more houses for sale but fewer sales, and I just wondered how that. Can you explain anything about that relative to assessments and appeals and so
It's
forth?
all relevant. What's critical to tie it to is the period of time we're talking about. So that's why, you know, we pushed harder to try to get this last 12-month window from a couple of brokers that came in. And we actually saw, in that data, a bit of a rally of stronger sales in some of the neighborhoods. But the ones where it's still soft, that got not only repeated by certain transactions, but you're right, Elaine, there was a paucity of them. And I think because of that always stresses, well, what's really going on in that neighborhood for us to say, what's the market going on, and we really don't have enough data to test it. You know, zero, the numbers don't mean anything to you, but if you saw it with the map, we could match it up. Neighborhood 300, there was one sale in that period. In neighborhood 200, there was 0 sales. So even when I say where it's strong, you're talking 3 transactions in a year. In neighborhood 600 and 700, which has highest ratio, strongest sales, but there's still only 3 of them, which leads me to be still, like I can't, you know.
Can't make anything of it, yeah.
So I think the paucity of sales and the hesitancy of the market is in partly also happening because of what I said at the beginning of my comments. I think the uncertainty about the tax act, the interest rates keep, you know, chirping about whether they're going to go up or they're not going to go up, but and the economy in general.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Anybody else? Okay. Thank you for presenting tonight. The committee will now consider consent agenda resolutions. The resolutions listed on the consent agenda for consideration are as follows. The bills list, authorized refund of tax overpayments, authorized cancellation of sewer charge, authorized advertisement of bids, Mountain View paving project, authorized execution of storm sewer indemnification agreements, authorized rejection of bids received for the exterior masonry restoration at Short Hills train station, approved taxi livery licenses, approved sidewalk cafe licenses, approval of raffle licenses. Are there any comments from the committee or public in regards to any of the items listed on the consent agenda? Seeing none, may I have a
Move 19102 to 19110.
Second.
Okay.
Ms. Bursting?
Yep.
Mr. Levy?
Yes.
Ms. Lieberberg?
Yes.
Mayor Egler?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Levy?
Ordinance 2529-19 to exceed municipal budget appropriation limits and to establish a cap bank. As I previously explained, this is an ordinance that allows the township to increase its expenditure cap from 2.5% to 3.5%. The budget appropriations inside the cap now actually is less than 2.5%. This becomes available for the 2021 years as a possible insurance policy. As I previously explained, it does not require us to increase the appropriations cap. It gives the township the authority to increase the appropriations cap, consistent with our presentation at the last township committee, as I previously stated. Tonight is the time set for public hearing and final passage as advertised in accordance with law.
I declare the hearing open. Okay, Sam?
I move that the public hearing be closed and the ordinance be adopted on final reading, and the township clerk be directed to publish the ordinance by title as passed on final reading and in accordance with law.
May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call?
Ms. Bursting?
Yes.
Mr. Levy?
Yes.
Ms. Lieberberg?
Yes.
Mary Jo Eglin?
Yes.
Thank you.
Ms. Lieberberg, 2530-19.
The ordinance to amend Chapter 7 of the General Ordinances, Traffic of the Township of Millburn to redesignate parking lots on the eastbound Short Hills train station. The statement of purpose is to combine these three parking lots that serve the eastbound Short Hills train station into one parking area. By combining the parking lots that service the eastbound Short Hills train station, spaces can be more thoughtfully distributed to provide accessible parking to those that require handicap parking. This revision to Chapter 7-35.7, designation of types of lots, will allow for handicap accessible parking adjacent to the train station. Tonight is the time set for the public hearing and final passage as advertised in accordance with law.
I declare the hearing open. Continue.
I move that this public hearing be closed and the ordinance be adopted on final reading, and that the township clerk be directed to publish the ordinance by title as passed on final reading in accordance with law.
I'll second that. May I have a roll call?
Ms. Bursting?
Yes.
Mr. Levy?
Yes.
Ms. Lieberberg?
Yes.
Mary Jo Eglin?
Yes.
Thank you.
Ms. Burstein has ordinance 2531-19 to present.
Procedure for introducing an ordinance on first reading. I would like to present an ordinance entitled Township of Millburn, ordinance number 2531-19, an ordinance authorizing the acquisition by purchase or condemnation of an easement interest in a portion of the real property located at 2 Park Road, known as Block 1401, Lot 11. This ordinance is being proposed to authorize the acquisition of an irregularly shaped drainage easement interest as well as a temporary construction easement at the southwestern corner of property located in the township on which to locate pipes and related flood control equipment underground. The installation of the pipes and equipment will allow for improved stormwater management. Our engineering consultant, Shammer Engineering, has determined that an improved stormwater management system would be facilitated by replacing the stormwater drainage system in the area of 1 Jefferson Avenue and 2 Park Road, running beneath Old Short Hills Road. I move that this ordinance be taken up and passed on first reading, and that the township clerk be authorized to have the ordinance published in accordance with law in the item and for hearing and final passage on Tuesday, May 21, 2019.
Second. May I have a roll call?
Ms. Bursting?
Yes.
Mr. Levy?
Yes.
Ms. Lieberberg?
Yes.
Mary Jo Eglin?
Yes.
Thank you.
We have one item of old business that Alex would like to address. Mr. McDonald.
We currently have our bid specs that were received for the electronic signboard under legal review, but wanted to address the committee and kind of come up with a determination as to location. I know there's been some discussion about this. We've kind of outlined several possible locations, but we'd like to sort of zone in on or hone in on a particular location. One sort of more obvious location would be in front of, in or around Town Hall. The other was at the corner of Glen and Lackawanna. And we do have some other activity going on in that area as well. And then another was at the corner of Parsonage Hill and White Oak. But I just kind of wanted to get the committee's feeling on this. I think certainly once we look to place the electronic signboard, that's where it's going to be. And we want to just make sure that there's a consensus among the committee.
I'll start with Committeeman Levy. Do you see a preference for location?
I'm not married to any location other than the one that has the most traffic. So statistically, the one that has the most traffic should be the one where the location is, whichever one that is.
Okay.
I agree.
Ms. Liebenberg?
I would agree as well. I think I was with the Environmental Commission, and we discussed the location on Glen and Lackawanna, and the Millburn train station, the library. It seems to be a very busy intersection. I guess we could perhaps take some totals or counts, but that seems to be a place where there's a hub of activity. The library is sort of a community hub as well, so I would vote for that location.
And I believe at the Environmental Commission, at their display, she has on that corner a rain garden, and you had a meeting with her,
Yes.
with Elizabeth Volavon, and you've sorted out the height of what her plants will be, her rain garden, so
And-
it'll work in conjunction,
Yes,
no
and
conflict.
No conflict, and the two can very coexist, if you will.
There's no issue with sightlines.
Right, that was looked at by our
Right,
engineer.
we did look at that with the engineering department. Yes.
Okay, so I think we'll move,
Okay, so the committee's in consensus with Glen and Lackawanna.
sure.
Well, no. Is that the statistically most traffic area?
I can't give you an exact number, Sam. Certainly, there's a lot of traffic at the corner of White Oak and
And there's a lot of traffic in all those
Yeah,
areas. Which
correct.
one has the most? That's,
I cannot give you that statistic right now.
Well, I mean, there's traffic on Millburn Avenue in front of Town Hall. I mean, I think Town Hall is a place that if we look for a second signboard, I think it's an ideal place, because I always, signboards usually when you see them are with a building. It's about, the whole point is about getting information out to the residents. And you can comment, would
it's
take,
not public comment.
what?
It's not public comment.
But I would like to hear from the residents. Take 2 minutes.
It's not public comment, though.
Sam, I would like to hear from a resident. I think it's fine.
We need to adhere to an agenda. It exists for a reason.
Okay. Merrily, please. Yes, you can speak briefly.
Excuse me.
No harm in hearing from our residents.
Hello, Marilee Respect, 91 Whittingham Terrace. How expensive are the signboards, and are we only considering one? Because these all sound like fabulous locations, but when I've been paying more attention when I drive around to neighboring towns, and what I've observed anecdotally is that it's usually in front of Town Hall in a lot of the towns in the area. So I was just wondering if it would confuse people if it wasn't near Town Hall, and could we get two and not wait for a second one?
I agree. I think they're usually anchored at a town hall, and that's where people look for information. There is a lot of activity because of the train station, so ideally 2 would be wonderful. If we could have the funds for 2, I would love to see 2. What do you think?
We have one. Where would you like to put one?
We have
We approved one.
Correct.
We approved one. So the process, we could move to approve a second one when we see fit.
Well, yeah, I would just like. I mean, I'd like to get this. Yeah, get this one.
You know what, I sort of agree that I think it should be town hall, actually, now that as we've said, I think it should be town hall.
Mayor Becker?
There's always traffic by town hall, and we're always stopped by town hall. So more people can read your sign.
Right. I mean, I like the idea that it's anchored at town hall. One more.
Yeah.
Ms. Ranieri,
Sure.
you have a lot of history in town.
As soon as you said it, Glen and Lackawanna, I had a little bit of my heart stopped because of the accident that was there, because of the pedestrians.
That's not where it was, though.
The safe, but But by the
Yeah.
library, by the train station,
Yeah.
that corner, that's a safety issue there that I'd like to consider. People are additionally distracted by looking at a sign when they should be watching the pedestrians all over the street that
And the three-way stop.
Okay,
And
so.
no crosswalk.
No well, there will be a crosswalk there. One day, not yet.
Someday.
Okay, so if we take a quick poll, town hall.
Town hall.
I envision town hall anchored to town hall. I wish we could have two, but we will get a second one if we start, wherever we start. Sam?
Abstain.
Abstains. Jackie?
I think that you'd have more visibility at Millburn and by the library.
Well, I think we'll have to wait till next week when Tara's here to break the tie. Or does this count?
There's no tie.
2-1. Oh, no tie. Town hall takes it?
Yeah.
Town hall takes it. Well, town hall would be a one-way, how's that gonna be, Alex?
At this point, it's a two-way.
Okay,
So
for
for
walkers and,
pedestrian and for.
The sign's two-way, not three.
That's correct. Yes. Very good
we
distinction.
could change that too.
Sure.
All right, folks, so that's that.
Can I?
And
Oh, sorry,
please.
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I have one other question on old business.
Sure.
Do we have a time frame for looking again at the ordinance for short-term housing,
Oh,
rental housing?
we are looking to that. Ms. Lieberg had some,
Yes, we've
Information.
tasked our administration to be looking at some other ordinances in municipalities that have dealt with this in kind of three categories. So definitely no, definitely yes, and the one of concern is, with some restriction. So
So we will have. Sorry to interrupt you.
yeah.
We will have an analysis to the township committee circulated. We've already started that work and have two ordinances that are sort of that middle category. We'll make sure that that's circulated to the committee so that there can be some further discussion on it maybe on May 7th.
Perfect, thank you.
thanks for reminding us, that's a very important issue in town. Any other old business from our committee people? Any new business from our committee people?
Move to adjourn.
Okay, happy Passover, happy Easter, enjoy your holiday.
Me?